Welcome back to part 2 of our delicious conversation with Douglas Rushkoff. He's made groundbreaking documentaries with PBS Frontline. He has a thought-provoking podcast, and his insights have compelled us to really look at the ethics of where we are today in a digital reality. He is a profound thinker and has been named one of the top 10 thinkers, like really understanding this whole idea of, what do you call them now, thought leaders. Like, this guy's been a thought leader since before thought leader was a term. We talked about a lot in the first part about growing up with television and community and how we've gone away from that, and the beautiful ideas of this community that would be created online, and the integration of that with psychedelics and the idea of this expensive self, and how all of that has somehow gotten filtered down into this perversion of the idea, which now seems to be a focus on fame and wealth. And I want to say that I live in the digital world. I have a podcast. There's an example. It's just one of the things that I do. But I have a podcast, and I write books, and I put posts on social media and write articles that I hope people on social will go and read. All those things are very real. So I'm involved in that. And for functional reasons, I'm obviously a capitalist. I have to eat and I have a lifestyle. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the extremes of those things. And one of the things that Douglas has been really focused on is this thing, which is the name of his podcast too, which is called Team Human. I want to talk about Team Human for a minute so people can understand what the concept of that is and what the reality of it is, and how can we be part of Team Human.
I mean, it's interesting. The idea for Team Human came up when I was on a panel with a transhumanist named Ray Kurzweil, who's an interesting guy. He made great keyboards. Then he went to Google, became an engineer, and he's really obsessed with the idea of finding a permanent home for his brain, right? Uploading his brain to the digital future somehow. And on this panel, he was saying that we have to accept that evolutionarily, computers are the future, that they are the next species, that we need to pass the evolutionary torch to them, stick around as long as computers need us to keep the lights on, and then accept our inevitable extinction.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that. So I said, but human beings are special. I brought this. I said, human beings can watch a David Lynch movie, not understand what it means, and still experience that as pleasure. Right? So human beings can embrace paradox and contend with ambiguity. There's a place for humans in the digital future. And he said, oh, Rushkoff, you're just saying that because you're human. And then I said, fine, I'm on Team Human. And the more then I was saying that Team Human, I was realizing that it's not just Team Human against Team Machine. It's I'm on the human team, that being human is a team sport. The extreme capitalists believe that nature is about the survival of the fittest individual, and that that's what Darwin said. That's not what Darwin said. Read
Complete
the Darwin.
misquote.
It is. Darwin is actually saying what he's marveling at is the way that species cooperate and collaborate in order to ensure mutual survival. This fits into that, and that fits it. It's a perfect symphony. I was taught that in middle school that the big tree shades the little tree, so the little tree dies. No, the big tree shades the little tree and then shares nutrients with the little tree during the summer, so that when it loses its leaves, the little evergreen can share nutrients back with it through a network of mycelia that take a service fee. That's economics in the ecological way.
Ecological economics, yeah.
Right. And it's collaboration between species. So Team Human was about really arguing that anything that helps us work together and socialize and collaborate, cooperate, communicate is our friend. Anything that alienates us from one another is working against the real spirit of humanity. And I looked sort of at that arc. What is the difference between a business where people can work together and one where certain people are extracting value from other people? How does everything from the English language with subjects and objects, how does that create these sort of preconditions for the anti-team ethos that seems to dominate our culture right now?
But in many ways, and this is my point of view, and you certainly feel free to push back against it, but I don't think it's as binary as your Team Human or your Team Cyborg. I wrote a special report on transhumanism. And what I talked about in that report, obviously quoted Ray and many others. And I think that if you and I get into a time machine and go back not very long, 100 years, and you've got a heart valve in and somebody else has got a replacement knee, we're wearing glasses or hearing aids or whatever, we're all cyborgs.
Yeah, I got a fake tooth.
Right. So we're all cyborgs to that generation.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's a natural evolution that is transhuman, but it's, as I pointed out in the article, that report, the most important thing is to not lose our humanity in the process.
Right.
And that's, to me, is the danger, because as you talked about with social media, it was this place, this beautiful idea of a social community where we could come together that we've lost now, and now we're slaves of the algorithms that are putting money in the pockets of the creators or the designers.
Right.
And in many ways, the idea of that transhuman is we have to hold on to this. And this is what I talked about when I gave my argument about transhumanism at a presentation I did. I said, the warning signs with AI are the warning signs with the internet. I can remember when the internet came out and I was really excited and I thought, just like you, oh, this is going to be wonderful. People will have free speech. Now you can't even say the word suicide. It's unalived. Like, what? You can't use the word alcohol. You can't use the word drugs. There's more censorship now than there was in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's a reaction. It's a way to try and come back from where it went wild. I understand that. But we need to learn that in the context of AI, is that we need some parameters on it so that we stay as the focus, which is the humans in the transhumanism, not trans and let's forget human.
Right. I mean, a lot of it comes from the hubris of thinking that we know everything that is human or not, that as if the program somehow can substitute. It's like, we didn't know about the gut biome until a couple of decades ago. It didn't even exist. We didn't know about the interstitial organs, the connective tissue. We just thought it's just crap. So a lot of the stuff that we look at as noise, that a programmer will look at as noise, is actually signal.
Yes.
The risk is not the technology itself. The risk is that we allow the technology to auto-tune our humanity. And I get it. Auto-tuning, I get it. You want to take Ariana Grande and make sure she hits exactly that right note in the million-selling album of Wicked, go for it. But if you take James Brown, who's reaching up for that note, and you auto-tune him, you've shaved the soul off the music. And there's all of this stuff that we don't know is there, which is there. So we can't assume that the digital replicas are everything. CDs, we now know that 44,000 hertz sampled CDs don't have the same impact as an album. Now, maybe a high-def lossless FLAC file maybe does, but they were not. So these symbol systems don't represent reality. So it's a matter of using them and understanding them. Yes, I'm glad I have my glasses. Thanks Spinoza or whoever it was that worked on the lenses of these things and figured these things out. Well, it's a glass, so it's analog. I'm happy for the digital thing. I'm happy for all of the tools and to embrace them. It's just not to let them determine too much about how we interact, who we are. And that's the categories. And you can go, this is not left or right.
No.
The left problem is they let the quantization of digital force people to come up with exactly where are you on this spectrum? Are you this, that, this, that, this, that? Okay, I'm black, lesbian, non-binary, Atlanta, this. I'm a white, this, Protestant, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't know what I am. I'm in these in between. I'm just this person. And when you have to over-define who you are, whether it's as the metric of a consumer profile for Facebook and Instagram, or the metric of an identity for a neoliberal identity politics, whatever that is, you're missing it. I mean, the easiest way I've explained it to people is time is this great thing. It's great. I'm glad we have time in seconds, but a clock or a computer understands time as the ticks of the clock. Great. Human beings live in the space between those ticks.
Yes.
That's where the action is. So you can't mistake the ticks for the reality. And that's my concern with a Kurzweil or somebody, is Yes, you've got your data in there. The computer's going to know all of your data, but it may not be you. You might not be your data. You might be this other thing.
I fully agree with that. And I think that my argument around this is that, and it really reflects back to what you talked about in part one in the context of business, is I'm old enough to remember when there were specialists, but it wasn't about having a niche. And everything became so freaking niched. And if you were in a business, you had to be niche. And I talk about all the time, it's better to be a polymathic generalist than it is to be in a niche. And so to me, the socio-political evolution of that is now I'm a black person. I can't be half black, half white, mixed race. I'm black. I have to be gay, or I'm pan, or I'm something, as opposed to how about I'm me and I'm just going to be, as opposed to you have to give me this bloody niche that limits me rather than expands me.
I understand the impulse. I mean, as a Jew, right? I understand the impulse to come up with ever more granular law. That's what the Jews were doing. This is what Hillel and then Jesus were going, dudes, it was a beautiful thing. They escaped from Egypt. You get to the desert. Let's write laws. Let's use the power of text to write laws so we can have an ethical template. And say, okay, so what if the goat crashes the gate and goes on your neighbor's land and ruins something? Who's responsible? Well, who built the gate? Was it you? And does the gate have, another law? So it gets ever more granular. And the same thing sort of happens in the way we try to define who we are. So you've got to put another stripe on the flag because now what about the asexual? Are they on the flag on this flag and that? And you're trying to find, well, I'm asexual, but I'm also poly this. So it's like, there's another, when do you get to that Jesus point of going, well, I love you all. Everybody's good. How do we emphasize the shared humanity? And I understand we could emphasize the shared humanity as long as default humanity is not white, male, middle class, whatever. As long as it's not the default. And I remember first time I went to South Africa, before Mandela was even elected, spending time with all these people. And I'm looking at people and they said, oh, no, I'm not white or black. I'm colored. And I'm like, colored? We're not allowed to say it. I'm not allowed to say that word in America. And I no, this is the word we use for people who are like a combination of the things. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I can't go back. Because I was writing an article and they said, well, tell them you write down that I'm colored. I'm like, I can't write that. But I found in my R magazine, the standard format was mixed race, a mixed race person. Because of the history of the word colored in America was a different use of the term. It's really hard. But that's the anti-human thing. That's what I'm trying to stress in Team Human and my work is that we're all in the in-between. Everybody's in between. You know why you're never satisfied with a shoe? Because no one really does 6 3/4. It's 6.5 or 7. It's like they're never going to find you. And that's the beauty of it. You are indeterminate. You are indescribable. You are like Mr. Rogers said, you are fine just the way you are. I love you just as you are. And there's never going to be the words, the numbers, the program to replicate you, to represent you.
For me, that's the challenge with the extreme left and the extreme right, is that on both sides of that, it's about stuffing you in a category as opposed to seeing you as a human. I've just written a manifesto that's about generous curiosity. Solve is a generous curiosity. Let me be generously curious about you. Not curious as in, I'll ask you a question, you tell me an answer. That's not curiosity. That's questions and answers. Curiosity is a deepening of understanding of you so that if you show up as a queer mixed race individual, that's not who you are. That's just some of the labels that are on the top. But who are you? What's at your soul level? What's at the essence of who you are? What is it that sets your heart and your soul on fire every morning and makes you want to smell the flowers and appreciate the breeze and the sunshine or whatever it might be? Like, I want to know that because that is not represented by the color of the hat you wear or don't wear.
Right. It's hard, though. And that's partly also the fault of social media, which got everybody obsessed with these radio buttons on what you are. I like movies or books. I like this or that. I'm one of these or one of those. And it's hard. It's tragic that it gets to this, that you end up, and I wouldn't even say it's extreme right and left anymore, because extreme left would be the labor movement and extreme right would be William Buckley or something, or Goldwater. which had nothing to do with this. What you're talking about is sort of the extreme woke or extreme anti-woke.
Mhm.
They get in this place where the extreme anti-woke will say, you're a man, like legally, Trump is saying in America, you're a man or you're a woman. You got to be one of these two things. I get it. You want to know because it's scary to not know what people are. And the other side is saying, oh, no, you're one of these 160. You got to pick one of those. It's the same problem, just with one has no granularity and one has infinite granularity, but it's always finding a thing. And the reason people want a thing is because otherwise you're in this place, the place that I'm sure you ask your clients to go, that creative, open, no boundaries place. You don't know what's going to happen. You go there. When I go there, sometimes I cry. I'm sure you have clients cry. It's like an ocean of tears, the sadness of the world, the compassion I start to feel for everybody and their everything. There's no boundaries. There's no limits. It's that Buddhist, make me one with everything. It's like, be careful what you wish for, because if you really experience that, that's a scary place. So I understand why people want, tell me what I am, tell me what to believe, tell me the thing, so I can just follow that.
That is the compulsion towards religions and political parties and such, is that human beings are tribal. And so we want a place to call our tribe. And this is why we have to move to belonging rather than tribe, which is, I don't care where you're coming from, whatever label you want to cling to, just can we commune together? What is the commune together? And in that, finding the beauty, and much to what you just said, for me, the experience is when you're connected at that level, in any given moment, you can feel all the pain of the world and all the joy of the world. And you can be overwhelmed with sadness. And it's just like, I'm feeling the weight of everybody right now. Or you can be overwhelmed with joy, and it can be 1 second apart. And I'm feeling the hope and the potential of all of this, because my line is enlightenment is a destructive process.
Yeah.
Right. So all this very destructive behavior and political environment that we're living in is the birth of enlightenment. I have written about and believe that we are at the beginning of a new renaissance, because if you look at the Enlightenment, the age of enlightenment, prior to that was, well, the plague. Pretty shitty.
Yeah.
But it gives birth to, by bringing us back, I've talked about COVID being in this way, is that it was the great pause where people got to stop and say, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I working 70 hours a week in a job I don't really like, to buy a bigger car and a bigger house that I'm never in, and living in a marriage that I'm not really happy with kids who don't talk to me because I'm never around? Oh, maybe I have to reevaluate. And I'm concerned that we've pushed ourselves back to normal, quote unquote normal, not real normal, because of what you just said, because we want a place to just go, but this is who I am. No. What if you're not? What if you're not? What if you're so much more than that? What if it's so much bigger than that? What might happen then? Maybe you'll play on Team Human when you get to that space.
I would hope. You know, it's like having a brand or an identity. It's what they sold us in the 90s, that you got to do that in order to be able to represent yourself. And it's like, no, having a team, belonging somewhere. You know, even the word home, it's interesting. And I write a lot about the Renaissance, but before America, 200 years ago, when you said home meant the place you're from.
Yes.
Now, home means the house that you bought.
Yes.
It's like, oh, can you imagine? What's your home? My home's Stuyvesant Town in Manhattan.
Right.
Wow. My home's the East Village. My home's Cape Town. Oh, it's it's connected, beautiful.
But it implies community as opposed to isolation, which is where you started talking about at the beginning of the first session.
Yeah.
It's like, my home is, and what you're really saying is, this is my community.
Yeah. And people are desperate for that now. That's why even the people, you know, the psychedelics now, a lot of people are doing mushrooms and whatever. But you know what they're really doing is going into a room with 15 other people and lying down on their backs together. I don't care if they're on mushrooms. Try it without the mushrooms and see what happens. Just being there, just spooning. You don't have to have sex. Just spoon with somebody. Just hang out. do what the Quakers do. The Quakers, they were so smart. They did an anti-religion religion where you go to a Quaker meeting, you sit there in a room with the other Quakers. Everybody just sits in silence until someone wants to get up and says something. They go, oh, this happened to me, or I was just thinking about this. And then they sit down. That's it. It's just communing. It's why 12 steps is so powerful. What about doing 12 steps if you're not addicted to anything but just this crazy life? Just get in fellowship with other people and everything changes.
I couldn't agree more. So for you, is there any sort of existing organizational structures or technologies that provide the most promising foundations?
It's different things for different people. It's interesting. In the late 90s, I was part of a group. We started something called meetup.com. And Meetup actually got very big. It was a website. And the idea was we were looking at Yahoo groups and saying, what if we created Yahoo groups that their whole purpose is just to get people to go meet in the real world? So you find a group that like bicycle riders of Memphis, and we're all going to meet up here, or bowlers of Atlanta, whatever, pug owners of New Guinea. And it was just to get people together, thinking it kind of doesn't matter which. It's interesting. I was reading Bob Putnam wrote a book, Bowling Alone, which is about the collapse of the civic groups in America. I don't think it's like that Elks clubs and the Masons or whatever are necessarily going to come back now. But what have I done? I went to an ecstatic dance night in a church a couple of weeks ago. It was like from 12 years old to 85 years old, people just dancing in this place together for 5-6 hours. No drugs. It just, wow, transcendent experience. I did that. There's something else there's running now called Daybreaker, which are these dawn drug-free raves. So you go, it's like there's 6 a.m. There's something called Belong Institute, which is looking at different ways of belonging that they would really like your work in this area. It kind of doesn't matter what. I've been going to jazz and seeing just the people who stay after the show is over, stick around, and you start to see those things. Historical societies in towns are really cool because they're very grounded in place and people researching about what they're doing. So it's almost any fascination you have. That's what's on the back of my book, Team Human. It says, find the others. That's really it. Find the others who are interested in what you're interested in. Permaculture, cutting invasive vines off the trees in your town. There's anything starts it. And then community builds from there.
That's my question, Douglas, because like I said, I think that we've gone back to normal, even in a worse way than we were before COVID.
Right.
I talked to a lot of people who were just not as social even as they were pre-COVID. There's no government lockdown anymore. There's nobody stopping you hanging out with other people or going to dinner or being invited. And people are like, I'm just going to stay home. I feel like we've been socially conditioned by this situation that we're less communal now than we were. I've written about how the bowling clubs have gone away. The bridge clubs have gone away. All those things that where we used to have those things. And now the only way that we have them is if we have small kids and we're taking them to soccer practice and we might meet with the other parents, but we don't really like them and we don't want to really be around them. I hope that we can find a way back. But do you think there's any real impetus to find a way back? Or are we just so addicted to the external stimulation that happens inside of our own screens?
We're going to do it when we hit bottom. The original clubs and things that people formed were built around economic needs. They would be chipping in for funeral plots. There would be a group of people in their funeral club or a mutual aid society that then becomes a club as well. So I think either as we get poor, I'm not optimistic about the economy over the next 5 or 10 years. As you lose the ability to go it alone, you find the others by necessity. You find your community. When you can't afford another lawnmower, you talk to your neighbor about, can I borrow your lawnmower and you can borrow my power tools? What can we work out here as a neighborhood? I feel like need brings it up. People go to AA meetings because they hit bottom. So I have a feeling people will find each other because they're lonely. And I think this is the moment, finally, the post-COVID moment when we no longer have that as the excuse, and we're realizing, my God, this really isn't working. I need fellowship of some kind. Maybe they'll turn to church, maybe religion will satisfy that need, but I have a feeling it's going to come up in other ways.
I really hope you're right. We are desperate for community, and it is a basic need of human beings. And it's really interesting to me from a psychological point of view that this is so elemental to who we are, and yet we are so distant from it. It's really a very fascinating paradox, psychologically versus socially. If you were to go back in time and you were with that little boy watching Lost in Space, what would he think about the guy you've become? What would be his response to who you are, who you've become, and the impact you're having or have had?
He'd be pretty psyched. Just that I got on the other side of the screen and became one of the people who's on CNN or Colbert Show or something like that. Just like, oh, wow, you got in the box. That's what you wanted since you were 3, to get in the box. And how do you shrink down to get in there? I got in. He'd be happy about that. And, I remember I was pre-med at Princeton. My parents said I could go to any college I want as long as it's Harvard, Princeton, or Yale. I could be any job I want as long as it's doctor or lawyer. So I was pre-med.
You're not Jewish, though, right? or Indian or Chinese.
Right, Jewish, of course. And I remember while I was in an organic chemistry test, I used the test booklet to write a letter to myself saying why I was leaving pre-med. And I said, this is from Douglas, the 19-year-old, to Douglas in the future. And you have a mission. You're a creative person. You need to go off-road and reinvent things. You are a cultural provocateur, and you need to help re-engineer society for its own good, whether it's through the arts or polemic or books, whatever. Go forth. And he'd be proud of me that I did it, and I'm proud of him. You got to take that risk. You really do. And go off the course. I'm sure you do that with every client. You're like, honey, step out from the known into the unknown. It's okay. Follow your heart. Actually follow your bliss, and the universe will follow. Admittedly, I was in a privileged situation as an increasingly white person. I mean, because when I was born, we weren't white, but now we are. Jews weren't allowed in a lot of places. We're allowed most everywhere now. So it's different, but I admit that, but I had your tremendous advantages at good public school, as good as those get anyway, and parents who did support me emotionally to do what I wanted to do in the end, which mattered. But I do believe the universe does kind of work like that you can find your real power by doing what you're driven to do rather than what you're being told to.
What is prescribed, leaving behind what is prescribed by social conditioning, by family conditioning, or whatever it may be. Doug, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. Before we go, I want to make sure that, again, people know how to find you and find out about your resources. Please tell people again where they can find out more about you.
You type the word Rushkoff, Rushkoff, anywhere. You'll see I've got a Substack, rushkoff.substack.com. I've got a podcast called Team Human at teamhuman.fm. I've got books, a book called Team Human, and my newest one called Survival of the Richest. It just came out in Germany this week and on the bestseller list. It's the first time I've been on the bestseller list the week that I came out. That's kind of exciting. So wherever you are in the world, you can get Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires, which is a really fun ride, or Team Human, which will fill your soul with love.
And there's so many good books. And listen, there's so many great articles. If you don't want to go into all that, just go into the articles, because they will definitely reshape the way you're thinking and shake your head a little bit. Doug, again, this has been a pleasure and an honor, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And for you, dear listener, remember, those who control the meaning for the tribe control the movement of the tribe. Leaders who are committed to positively shaping the political and business landscape know that they've got to type into what drives human behavior. I'm Dov Baron. I show businesses, teams, and leaders how to harness their emotional source code to move their tribe, because unified, actualized meaning is the single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for individuals and for companies. Remember, we need your help in staying relevant, so please go to wherever it is that you tune in from and do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. It makes a big difference to us. If you can put the show out there, think about how many people could benefit from that. It really makes a big difference. This is not just a one-way street. I'd love for you to leave your feedback. And thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how we are all being socially conditioned away from community, and that we really all need to be on, as Doug would put it, Team Human. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest, meaningful greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, in your life, and in your leadership impact. And I am out.